One is told never to argue or to disagree with a priest or bishop. Well, I'm not sure who tells you that. Probably the priest or the bishop. Well, I know what you're talking about, though. We should be very careful. You don't want to be disrespectful to legitimate authority. Now, there's a difference between disrespect and taking exception with something, whether it's in the secular order or even in the church. If a priest or a theologian or a bishop is not in line with the church in her teaching in faith and moral, can you take exception to that? Not only can you are probably morally obligated to do so, but you say, look, I can't do that. I don't know theology. I understand. You don't have to preach sermons about it. Just be solid in your faith. You might simply say, Father, that what you say, you can't believe how many questions and comments I've gotten from people telling me about the most unbelievable stuff. I had thought that a lot of this stuff kind of stopped along the way in the last couple of years. Apparently not in some places where some of you are from. A lot of nonsense is still going on. I sympathize with it. But, in addition to prayer and fasting, it says, how is one supposed to handle the situation without being disrespectful and so forth? Well, be careful how you do it. Pray. It may be that you can only pray and do penance. You don't necessarily have to. Not everybody can argue and talk and engage in that kind of thing, and most people shouldn't. They're not called to. But if the abuses are serious enough, like-minded people should get together and write a charitable and kind letter to the bishop, or go see him. Well, he won't see us. Park on his doorstep. Listen, we had a thing in a diocese where I worked, and they were making their own bread for the Eucharist. You know, they weren't making. Well, they were like hosts, but they were big, thick hosts, which is okay. The parish can make its own bread for the Eucharist, but they were using a Betty Crocker recipe. You know, milk, honey, sugar, vanilla, etc., etc., etc. And in the course of my teaching, I had told people about the form and matter of the sacrament of the Eucharist, and that you can invalidate the matter if you put, it's supposed to be in the Latin Rite, plain wheat flour and water. And if you have significant additives, you may invalidate the matter. That means you go to Mass, they go through the whole Mass, and there's no Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. Why? Invalid matter. So an 80-year-old woman, a retired school teacher, she heard it loud and clear, and that had been going on for years in her diocese. She went and said, I want to see the bishop. Well, the bishop is busy. I'll wait. She parked on the steps of the Chancery office. I think he was afraid to come out. 8 o'clock at night, he emerged. The old gal was there waiting. And she told him, Bishop, you appointed Fr.J.Corapi to teach in this diocese, blah, 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 blah. He said, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we been deprived of the whole Eucharist? Because the priest uses a cookie recipe. Oh, well, now, dear, now, let's not get carried away. Fr.J.Corapi, he's a good teacher, but he's kind of rigid on some of these things. Bishop called me up. I was very respectful to him. And he said, well, it's probably illicit, but not invalid. I said, Bishop, it's invalid, as sure as God made little green apple. And here's what we do. We'll take it to Rome and let the Vatican decide. Want to do that? Nope. Nope. So he told my lady friend, I'll take care of it. He talked to the priest. He did. The bishop called the priest in, told him, look, Father, don't do that anymore. And the priest was very arrogant, went back and continued to do it as he'd always done, the wrong way. Went on several months more. Now the old lady was ticked off. She got a bunch of her friends together. They went to the St. Joseph Foundation, a canon law association in San Antonio, and they drafted a lawsuit in canon law and prepared to bring it to the Vatican. They had their plane tickets, they had an appointment with the Sacred Congregation for Divine Worship, but out of courtesy to the bishop, they stopped off at the Chancery office on their way to the airport and put the file on his desk. There it is, Bishop. That's your copy. We're going to Rome. Well, now we're going. You didn't do anything. We believe we're being deprived of the Holy Eucharist. Please don't do that. I will call the priest in and I will tell him that stops this moment, or I remove his faculties immediately. They said, we'll wait in the waiting room. We ain't going anywhere. We'll wait in the waiting room, you call him. This is an 80-year-old woman. My kind of gal. So they waited in the room, and sure enough, the bishop called the priest in, and he read him the riot act. He made him go on a 30-day Ignatian retreat, and when he came back, he made him apologize to the parish for what he had done, and from that moment on, that was never done again. Why? That elderly lady listened to those talks. Now, she didn't take my word for it. She believed what I said, but she looked it up herself in the catechism. She looked it up. And once she had confirmed that, yep, that's the way it is, went to the bishop. She acted on it, right? Initiative, right? Leadership. That old gal is a leader, I want to tell you. I'll bet you she's a full colonel or a general in God's army.